guarantee as much as we can guarantee.
So, how long have you two individually been hauling for?
Well, I actually joined PushX in 2013, and when I started, I was pretty much a newbie hauler. Because back then they used to kind of take noobs and kind of train them, and that's how I got in. So I've been hauling since 2013.
And
Flint?
I've had my jump freighter since about 2013 as well, and you know, I was in Red Frog at one point, and I ended up in PushX, and I'm very happy here. There's good people from all over New Eden, and we have good fun, and you know, there's a lot of teamwork involved too, actually, in getting freight out, especially when you have multiple loads going to one destination.
So, from a hauler's perspective, since you've flown with both of them, is there a significant difference you see between hauling for PushX and hauling for Red Frog?
Well, like I said, the mechanics are pretty similar, except maybe their operating procedures are a little bit different. At the end of the day, you're moving a package from A to B, but you know, for example, Red Frog has an insurance program that they have with their freighters. We don't really have an insurance program, but from my perspective, we usually get a lot more freight through PushX from what I've experienced. I think we also kind of offer a little bit different services, you know, which I like a lot. I'm not a huge fan of high sec freighting. To me, it's kind of, I don't know how do I put it, not necessarily boring. It's just I find the low sec runs, the interceptor runs, the Thera runs to kind of be exciting, you know, because you're kind of going, how do I put it, into deep and dangerous territory.
It's interesting that you call that dangerous territory because historically, Red Frog in particular was notorious that usually established groups, even some groups with their own built-in industrial wing or hauling wing, would still not shoot Red Frog structures or Red Frog haulers because it was so widely utilized that if you were shooting a Red Frog jump freighter, you could be shooting your own members' stuff, and your own members would then not be happy about that particular incident. Is that
Oh
still the case that you find, or has things shifted?
I
man,
think
how long ago was that? Because that has not been the case in probably my whole career. Like
every
they go after you.
every alliance has its own connections with different people throughout New Eden. I'm sure Red Frog has its allegiances with people, and you know, just like we have, you know, our terms with other people. But at the end of the day, I think Code's gonna shoot whatever freighters coming through Niarja or Udama. You know.
Um, I believe that changed once Mini Love came to be in about, when was that, 2012, 2013? And who was the guy that really started that? War Akini. War Akini. Once War Akini really optimized and made efficient how you gank freighters in HiSec, I think that really started changing because people started seeing it as a sport more afterwards. So before that, I think it was, people thought it was really really hard to gank freighters in HiSec, which it is. And so it was just something maybe people did every once in a while. But then War Keeney and Mini Love came along and changed that and showed these are the steps you take. You can do it for this cheap, and you can kill these freighters. And ever since then, it's just been like you fish in open water.
So
So I don't feel I'm saying I don't think for Push X I don't feel any um, protection from gankers for the reason that, oh, they might be hauling our stuff, so we're going to leave them alone. They they don't really care, and I can't speak for Red Frog, but I'm sure they have the same.
I'm trying to remember which system it was back when Nullsec still had NPC stations and conquerable stations, and even shortly after Citadels came out. There was a system where Red Frog owned a station in a system that Red Frog did not own because the residents of that region wanted to be able to utilize Red Frog. And then after the stations flipped and Citadels came out, they were permitted to place down Astras in order to ship jump freighters through. I want to say it was Quarius, but I cannot remember for certain.
We well, I mean, like I said, I think every corp may have its own alliances with other people. PushX offers a soft service to anyone who's willing to allow a PushX Citadel within that system, and so we can easier deliver any kind of logistic needs to that alliance. There's a lot of internal logistics for a lot of alliances too, so sometimes they'd rather just stick with that. But yeah, it's so hard to say. I think every alliance is a little bit different, but freighting is kind of one of those funny things where in the same system you could find the guys that absolutely love you, and you could find the same guys that absolutely hate you. Like everyone's trying to kill you, and then at the same time everyone loves you for delivering their freight. It's funny.
Is that one of the things that sort of attracts you to hauling freight for a living, if you will, in Eve, that makes you do the space trunking thing?
Uh, you know, there's a lot of ways to make ISK in Eve. There's ratting, there's super ratting, there's mining. What I thoroughly enjoy about freighting is that you kind of get to travel around and you meet tons of people, and you're all over New Eden. One day you're in Curse, the next day you're in Stain, and then you're in Fountain, or you're in Hisec delivering stuff. And like I said, there's people who are great to you, and there's people who want to just gank the crap out of you. Shout out to Purple Helmeted Warriors. Shout out to shout out to Pornmaker. Shout out to Arton. Shout out to Riot. Shout out to Jason Kujin in Code and Globby. These are all people that try to kill us all the time, and it's good fun. And then there's guys out there that absolutely love us and do everything to support us.
To kind of continue what I was saying, and you were talking about maybe people don't shoot you because you're in one of these halls. I see that more with my Sino alts, because I will use Cassie Helio, my PushX tune, to light Sinos. And it is kind of interesting that pretty much no matter where I go in any region, someone recognizes PushX, who I am, or my association with PushX, and they'll either want to kill my Sino right away or they'll leave it alone. I'll be deep in nullsec, and some people are like, "Oh, I'm not going to shoot a PushX Sino," and I just give them an 07. I'm like, "Thanks." And some people are just like, you guys aren't going to haul anything through here. I'm going to kill your Sino. And but it's interesting that can go to any region and pretty much everyone knows who we are. It's not like with some of the PvP stuff, if you're over in this region, you know who the players are, but if you're way over on the other side of the map, you might not necessarily know who they are. Kind of everywhere we go, we kind of get recognized. And to me, that's kind of part of the attraction. It's like we're kind of always on tour and kind of getting to meet people everywhere and see everyone's reactions.
I'm especially curious, Cassie, about your motivations, because not only are you a hauler, but you're also the CEO of this entire organization. And being a leadership figure in Eve is notoriously busy and not necessarily rewarding, so to speak. So, what motivates you to not only do the hauling itself, but also run the organization?
Oh man, what a great question. Um, well, when I joined PushX, I fell in love with it. I had such a great time with it. I made great friendships. I really enjoyed hauling, and it was really always it was my goal to keep things going. Contracts were going slow or whatever. I would haul my butt off and make sure they got done. Well, this naturally got the attention of some leadership before I was in a leadership position, and I kept adding to the corp. I updated some of their tools because I have development skills, and just keeping the corp going and seeing it grow and bringing in more people to make friends the way I did when I really didn't have any ISK. I didn't have a career in Eve before I joined PushX. I was doing like faction warfare stuff, and that was like the first thing that I really started making money. But then once I joined PushX and became a hauler, I felt like I really had a career like in Eve, and that kept me going. And so I want people that were in my position back then, not really knowing what they're going to do in Eve, not really sure how to make money, to be able to join PushX and have that same experience, be around these really experienced haulers that can teach them new things, and be around people that are going to make them laugh and have fun. And that's what I like to see. That's what keeps me going, and to keep PushX running as efficiently as it always has ever since I joined.
I'm glad you brought up that you used to do faction warfare, because it's worth noting to the listeners and the viewers that both of you were referring to you by your PushX characters, but you do fly on other characters in indeed other organizations in EVE, even for PvP organizations. But you do still have to maintain neutrality as members of PushX. Can you walk us through sort of the motivation behind that decision and how do you manage it?
Well, PushX has always had a stance of neutrality. Sorry, I just got a message from one of my friends saying he wants a shout out. Um, anyways, Push has always had a stance of neutrality. We will haul for anyone. As long as people aren't, as long as you're not specifically banned for using our service for some reason, for trying to purposely screw us, we'll haul for anyone. We get contracts from Jason Kujian to this day. We'll haul 350 catalysts from Jita to Udema for him, and that's no problem because we're neutral. We have people in PushX that are bitter enemies on the battlefield, but in PushX they're friends. And to run a hauling corporation, I don't think you have any other option really. If you want to be a public option for people to use, you have to treat everyone fairly and and have the reputation and the trust from the customers that they know that you're going to be neutral to them and you're going to be neutral to everyone else. So if a customer knows that I'm not going to share any information about them or I'm not going to have any bias against them for who they're associated with, then another customer will know that we'll treat them the same way. And so maintaining the neutrality is important. And that doesn't mean that we can't have business deals with certain entities, but it just means that we don't discriminate who we make business deals with. Who are the big ones? Goons and PL, right? Like if PL wanted service and Goons wanted service, we'd serve them both. We have no biases about their business matters. We're only worried about our business matters.
I like it. As a former member of the capitalist army, I'm sure Alec would be very pleased with that mentality. I do have a couple of questions which have popped up. One is that how do you deal with, specifically when you're hauling into low sec and null sec, how do you deal with Freeport bait citadels, or do you only like jump to your structures or something like that?
Flint, you want to take this one? I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, sure. So we have certain restrictions. Recently, some people who have been using our service for a while now have noticed that we no longer handle DST sized loads to low sec, and that's just because the operational security of doing so is just kind of hard to do with the mechanics that are currently in Eve. And Cassie shared an experience with me where he was moving through a pipe system, and there was a carrier sitting on a gate that almost fragged him by sending fighters at him. And there is the micro warp drive cloak trick that people use for DSTs, but when you have fighters coming at you almost 5-6K a second, it's kind of hard to avoid that. And so we've since changed our policies to where now we're only doing blockade runners and what is called our nano service, where we deliver via a interceptor for very, very small loads to low sec. And then everything else, say for example you want to haul above above, I believe it's 11,000 or 12,000 M3, Cassie, for the BR loads.
12,500.
Yeah, so above 12,500 immediately changes to our jump freighter service, which is a more secure way of hauling loads throughout low sec and null.
And do you guys just have a massive network of citadels, or do you have deals with other entities that you can use theirs, or do you do what unfortunately too many other individuals do and hope that the free port is actually a free port?
Well, we don't allow jumping to free ports. That's something that that is thoroughly in our new user guide, where if it's not approved on our structure list, you should not jump to that. You should jump to a station or through one of our approved structures. And approved structures can be through one of our own corp-owned structures, or it could be through one of our contacts that may be offering a SOV service or maybe offering a service to that location. So.
Yeah, so push works off of a whitelist. We only work with citadels that are long-standing public free ports. We have many in high sec, very, very select few in low sec. I believe the only Keepstar that we deliver to right now in low sec that's public is the Basgarin one, the one that's owned by the Space Pope. Is that Basgarin? I think so.
Yeah.
And before that, we used to deliver to the Waffle House in Kanaka, but it's been destroyed. But as far as low sec public citadels, they are very, very far and few between of the ones that we accept there. And on our website, we have a list of structures that we do deliver to. And if you make a contract to anything outside of any structure that's not on that list or NPC station, we won't take it.
It's one thing to note that the tools that Cassie has developed will actually tell us if that contract is going to a station that's not on our approved structure list, so no haulers will take it. We have precautions in place to avoid any of those scams or freighter gankers trying to compromise our services.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, there was just a question from chat, but you go ahead and complete that, and then I'll ask that question.
Just going to say these are all parts of the management of these third-party hauling services that people don't think of. How we manage safety, how we manage security, how we manage delivery times, right? We have to think about all these little tiny dangers and stuff that people don't even think about, because we want someone just to be able to pop in a contract and then sit back and have a margarita and wait for their delivery email to show up. But they don't know what we're doing, that either through the tools that we've developed or people just using their own brains, that they're scouting the route, making sure it's not dangerous. They're going around gate camps, they're checking structures, making sure that they can still dock there and everything. And they get there and get it delivered, and the hauler's sweating. It's like, ooh, I finally made it. And the guy gets their delivery, and they're just like, man, that was easy.
I guess, so I have a couple of questions. The first one is, about how many contracts a week do you do, roughly?
I'd say about 1,000.
Like one with 3 zeros?
One with 3 zeros. Yeah, I would say it goes from
And
about
that is,
700 to 1,000 a week.
Yeah. And
God
another
almighty, that is so much more than I thought.
Yeah, we move a lot of stuff. Another way to check it out too is if you go to our website, pushx.net, you can actually see our queue status, and you can sign up and see where your contracts are within our queue. And you can see completed within the last day. I'm looking at it right now is 98 contracts, and it hovers around that point usually. And Cassie does a good job of actually pushing to our Twitter on Tweet Fleet, how many contracts are being completed in the average amount of hours, or average delivery times, whether it's for our rush contracts, our low sec or null sec, or our high sec, or in regular freight services.
And, the second question is, and Pure Carnage was asking here in chat, but, how much ISK does a jump freighter pilot make on a casual evening?
It's pretty lucrative money.
Well,
go ahead, Cassie.
that really varies. A lot of people ask that. In fact, that's one of our frequently asked questions on our recruitment. And about a month ago, I posted all the some stats that we made on Reddit, and I posted it on our message board about how much people made from standard contracts and how much people made from jump freighter contracts. And the jump freighter contracts reward is significantly higher than what we call standard, which is anything except jump freighter. You'll see some. It really depends on how much time you can put in and how many sign alts and stuff you have. But you'll see an average jump freighter pilot making about. Now, Flint, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll see them making about 8 to 9 bill a week in reward. And then the highest all time that we ever had is one guy made 60 bill just doing jump freighter contracts in 1 month. Of course, that's the top, but the money's there is what I'm saying. Average, I'm thinking people are making about, probably 7 to 9, maybe 10 bill.
Yeah, I do about 10 bill a week if I'm really getting the hauling in, and I run 3 accounts, my jump freighter, and then I have 2 Sino alts. But those 2 accounts have Sino alts that are in interceptors on all 3 characters, and I keep 2 or 3 of them staged in major pipe systems or return systems, and then the other 2 kind of sceptering around all through New Eden, moving around, and yeah.
I don't want to make any misconceptions here, though, that everyone's working for it. I mean, it's work. Some contracts are easier than others, but some are a lot harder than others, and you can really risk a lot of assets. One mistake with a big, large contract that's got a lot of collateral can cost you a lot really, really quick.
Yeah, that is true. It can go south very fast, and at the end of the day, everyone always tries to compare it, with what's the tick rate, like compared to my super ratting ticks or my VNI ratting or my workroll mining ticks, and I would say anywhere from 200 mil to 1 bill an hour is pretty frequent for jump freight contracts. I mean, you may see a collateral that's 30 or 40 or 50 bill, and next thing you know, you're getting a 1.5, bill reward for it because it's, such a high collateral load. But those are a little bit less frequent.
So my question for you guys is, you talked earlier about the public channel, and I know a couple of my guys have used the public channel, and they react pretty fast. But does botting affect you? Is botting a thing in freighting and loads? And do the people do that? Like, is that a thing? Because I've been hearing that. And has it affected you guys at all?
No, man, I've never really thought about that, to tell you the truth. I've never known. Well, I guess there's really no way to know for sure, but I've never known of anyone that botted or anyone that had been caught botting that was a hauler that I knew personally. So, from my personal perspective, I've never really seen that as a problem.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Somebody was talking to me about it yesterday, and I'm like, eh.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing to think about is that the people that are out to kill us every day are actually helping us stay in business. And if you had a botting hauler moving from system to system, eventually a bumping material is going to come in and gank that ship. You just can't physically do it without having yourself at the keyboard and looking at it. And I think that's why it's kind of one of the most lucrative ways to make ISK in this game still, is because you really can't automate the how do I put it, the operating procedure that keeps you safe while you're jump freighting or while you're freighting in high sec. I mean, your bot's not going to tell you that there's a bumping material on the other side, not to jump that gate or to have a webbing alt next door to make sure that your freighter gets off safely, And so I think
Or it won't even tell you you're being bumped, right? Because there's no
exactly.
message for that, no cue for that. Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's one of the better ways to make ISK in this game, because we're not being competed with by bots, I guess.
Nice. I'm glad you cleared that up, because it was a debate I was having with somebody not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know anything about that. Maybe there's some sector of haulers out there, I guess in the haulers channel, if that's where you saw them, that have witnessed this. I don't want to say it's not true, but I've personally never had any issue or involvement or witnessed anything like that. I don't really know how you could do it. I mean,
right, that was what I was saying. It's like, how does that even work? And they're like, no, botting's a thing. I'm like,
Well, there are bots who do distribution missions, and so hauling for botting does work in that sense. But I suspect and there are market bots and theoretically contract bots as well. So theoretically, you could plug all those together. But I think the bumping issue would be the issue that makes it not work for you.
yeah, totally.
I do have one final question, and then we'll move on to some other topics, which is, you guys mention a lot, and even you publish on your Twitter the rate at which the average response time, and if it's not some sort of like deep industry secret, which is how you stay competitive, can you walk us through what do you guys do, what steps you take to get these contracts completed as lightning fast as you do?
well, that's not a secret at all, actually, because a lot of our information is on our wiki.pushx.net, which is has a lot of our procedures on it, and that's what we expect our recruits to know and expect them to follow those rules and stuff. And it lists on there how we prioritize the queue. Basically, we offer rush contracts. If you pay a premium, your contract can be put at the top of our queue. And beyond that, we just have standard contracts, and haulers are just expected to take them from the top to the bottom as much as possible. And then the tools that we have will also tell you what contracts are also on this route. So if you have a contract going, let's say the top contract is from Jita to Amar, it'll tell you, hey, there's another contract from going to Jita Amar, take it with you. And so that helps us to be efficient, and that's how we manage. That's how we manage all those. And for the people that need it fast, we offer the rush.
Awesome.
I appreciate your compliment about the lightning fast, because sometimes we get a bunch of contracts in and it doesn't. Man, sometimes the CEO doesn't feel like it. I'm watching those contracts, rack up, and people are trying to get them out, but people just keep scooping them up and keep taking them from the top and moving them out and keeping customers happy.
I think perhaps the issue is my perspective. Like I've only used third-party hauling services recently when I moved to the Australian time zone as far as my operating time. And certainly the haulers channel tends to be a lot quieter in that time zone. And so it was much slower to respond than when I used PushX, for example. So perhaps it's just in the dead time zones, you guys are significantly faster.
Well, here's there's so many little parts to it. Like here's a perspective. Like what the haulers channel can be really good for is getting stuff done really quickly, because you pop in there and you say, can someone move this for me right now? And if someone's available, then you can get something moved right then. The problem is that doesn't always happen. There's not any kind of consistency to that. It's just for who's around. Also, you don't know who you're going to get. It's kind of like pulling up to a hardware store parking lot and just saying, hey, who can build a fence for me? Right. And then some guys might come and be like, hey, I can do it. And you just judge right there off the top of your head. Okay, yeah, I'll get them to do it. You don't know if they're good. You don't know if they know what they're doing. You don't know if they're going to scam you, right? But you got someone quick, and you might get lucky, and you might get someone good. So sometimes that can be different with the third-party haulers, because you can't really pop into a third-party hauler like PushX or Red Frog and always be like, hey, I need something moved right now. Can you guys do it? First of all, usually, well, I'll only speak for PushX. Usually we can't, because we have other contracts that we need to take care of. People have been waiting. But also that also kind of sends up red flags. If someone's like, hey, I need something moved from this point to that point right now. Can you do it in the next 2 hours? We're starting to wonder, are these guys trying to set us up for something? They want us to jump in with this high collateral contract at this dangerous station right now? Are there friends there waiting for us? So, yeah, exactly. So those are where some of the differences are. And for the consumer is, do you want to go in the haulers channel and risk maybe not having the best service, not getting your stuff getting ripped off, or sometimes is it worth waiting a little longer and getting a more guaranteed service with a third-party hauling corporation?
That idea of people creating contracts to set you up and then catch you later. I believe I heard that Code used to set up public hauling contracts with collateral and then track down and gank the haulers with them. Is that a thing that you guys actively deal with?
So not so much. It happens every once in a while, but the thing is we know how to handle it. And for those guys that are trying to scam people, it is so much easier for them to do it on public contracts, because they can make a scam contract, and the pubby haulers, a lot of the newbies, the guys that don't know what to look for, they'll take it, they'll fall for the scam, and they don't know how to handle it. So they just take the contract and they go through, they fall for the bait exactly, and they die. Code gets them or whoever. In PushX, we know how to recognize that. We see that. And if something happens to where we have to take it, we team up and we handle it. So the scam for the person that set up the scam contract almost never works out when they set it up with us. So they just stop doing it, because we know how to handle it.
That's awesome. All right, well, this week, Talking in Stations is brought to you by, or in part at least, by the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational 2. If you did not hear, Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, it has been slightly postponed. So now instead of being spread out over 2 weekends, if all goes well, all of the matches, including the finals, will be happening on the weekend of April 27th and 28th. You can catch that on the CCP Twitch stream, as well as I'm sure some other people will be streaming it. They'll have some fantastic Alliance Tournament pilots, as well as the old Goonswarm Federation, Brave Newbies, some familiar faces from the nullsec scene, if that's where you hail from. It'll definitely be a good thing to go and check out. Also, old acquaintance of mine, Jin Tan, is going to be there. He is doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, getting things organized. It's really a pet project of his. And so I'm super hyped to see how it goes. This is the second one around. The first one was super fun. I'm definitely excited for this one. So go and check it out. The Streamfleet Showdown Invitational 2, April 27th and 28th. Let's hop into a bit of news subjects here, which is perhaps what some of our more nullsec-focused listeners were anticipating at the top of the show. And we have to mention it. There was an interim statement made by CCP on the Brisk Rubal ban. And this statement has been interpreted in so many different ways, I have lost count.
Terrible. It's a terrible statement.
Let's hold off. Let's go through. As far as I can tell, this statement says that CCP has had conversations with the individuals who were banned and are further investigating the ban itself, as well as the investigation they initially undertook. And if it turns out that they are in the wrong, they are fully prepared to reverse the bans and make reparations as appropriate.
And an apology.
And an apology.
Use the
yes.
word apology.
So, question to the panel: is this an accurate interpretation of what the statement says?
Yeah, we don't want to talk too badly about CCP. They're in a tough spot with this one, but I just think they should have just. I don't think this statement was required. Right? There's already flames burning. There's already multiple interpretations of what's going on, conspiracy theories and stuff. But this to me almost it opens the door that they feel like they might have made a mistake, and that's never good for a company to come out publicly, especially when you don't know that for sure. Because now, if people don't follow the rest of the story, it just erodes the credibility of everything. If they want to reinvestigate it, they could do that through internal channels, in my opinion, or go through the ban petitions in a private manner. But this statement just throws everything back into question. Like, it sort of insinuates that they jumped to a conclusion, does it not?
I'm not too certain.
I kind of found it quite funny, in actual fact. There was there's kind of like a funny aspect to this, which is like the conversations and the theory, the conspiracy theories all about it were sort of dying down at around about the time that they released this new one. And it was kind of funny. It was actually really funny because a lot of us were talking about the the first initial statement that they released as being about perfect if you wanted to stoke people's kind of stoke people to essentially create drama and sort of theorize as to what the hell was going on. It basically created so many more questions than it actually answered. And so we kind of thought well, maybe CCP might actually come out with a statement that actually answers some questions. And when they did, when they released this this statement, it was actually really funny because it actually brought up even more questions. So you cut out a bit there,
McLeod, but for our listeners who don't see his little chat bubble on the stream, that is McLeod. He is the engineer for the Sunday show. He's also on, you have your own podcast, right? The Push to Talk podcast, if I recall correctly.
I'm on there every so often, yeah. But as I was saying, I'm
one final point is, as far as his perspective, he is a member of the initiative. So
yes, this is very true.
Bear that
you
in
have
mind.
To understand this. But the other thing that the kind of final little point that I was going to make about it was that this second specific statement that CCP released was really funny because it actually didn't answer that many questions, and it brought out even more questions. It didn't answer that much, but it brought even more questions out. So it was just like, if you were hoping that the statement was actually going to answer more questions than I actually put out, it was almost the opposite, which was really funny.
It is indeed rather hilarious, but I think we'll stop the, I don't want to call it CCP bashing, but unfortunately conversations about this particular topic tend to go in that direction. Fortunately, they did say in the step blog that they hope to have a follow-up with a final decision and like a full explanation of the investigation coming out next week. So that will be nice to see. I guess until then, we can only wait. I do have one question for Cassie and Flint. Aside from your PvP endeavors on your other characters, do you ever find that a lack of a CSM representation for HiSec, like a HiSec candidate in particular, is a problem for you guys? Or are you able to just go to, say, Stephen Oken or another representative if you have issues? Is that something that's on your radar at all?
I think I can talk to that a little bit because over my career, CCP involved me in a contracts panel when they added contracts to Citadels. They put me in a focus group for that, and I was also in a focus group with Jintan on ganking. He did a focus group with the gankers privately, and then he did a focus group with haulers privately, and he selected certain people, and I was part of that. And you know, I've never really felt a missing part for HiSec hauling, in particular on the CSM. There are definitely some issues that bother us. Some things that we want to get addressed. But some of those names that you mentioned are actually really great at listening to those. Steve, Ronikin, and Jintan in particular, they were really good at listening to our concerns and bringing them. And I actually got some replies from them saying, I did bring this to them, here's what they said. Or, a lot of times the answer is, yes, I think that's a good idea. The problem is there's no one to work on it. But the PvP and the nullsec is really the heartbeat that drives the industry. So a lot of decisions that ripple throughout the game get decided there in the first place, and that's usually good for us because the more ships that blow up, the more industry happens, the more people got to haul. And so I've never felt the need in particular to have a hauling or HiSec CSM member. Not that I think it would be a bad thing, but I don't feel like it's been a critical missing part that has held us back or anything like that.
I'll say that, like I said earlier, is that these high-sec gankers, there wouldn't be hauling corps if there weren't high-sec gankers. Everyone would haul their own freight if there were no high-sec gankers. And I think, one of the big, talking points in a lot of hauling issues, especially when it comes to CSM time or, changes through CCP, is the bumping mechanics, and I know that's kind of a hard issue to address because, how do we allow people to get ganked then, and at the end of the day, like I said, we need gankers in order to keep us in business.
Well, that's a good question about the bumping mechanic.
Oh my gosh.
Just quickly, do you think there should be a time limit on that so that you're not being grief bumped for like an hour?
That's actually a great question. That's actually a great question because
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, when I was in the focus group with CCP, we actually talked about that directly and got some direct responses from some of the CCP devs, including CCP Fozzie, and we talked about it with Jintan. And probably to everyone's surprise, everyone in that focus group, when they said, y'all think this should be a part of it, they all said no. They're like, it should not be a part of it. And, so why? Why do you think it should not be a part of it? Well, because the timer does not add any meaningful gameplay. Being bumped or being a bumper are both equally boring. The bumper just keeps slamming your shit back and forth, and being bumped, you can't do anything. Your ship just keeps being bumped. What a better solution would be some type of active counter, some type of active gameplay. Now, there's all kinds of ideas for that, and I'm not even going to bring any of them up because I'm sure some of them are going to be controversial, or whatever. But something that would engage you more in that situation. Not just a timer that ticks after a few minutes and then it's over. That's not fun for anyone. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in defense, though, like the bumper can disengage when he gets bored enough. The bumpy can't disengage and is stuck in the boredom for as long as the other person is think it's funny, right?
yeah, exactly.
I believe there is a threshold, and I don't know the exact time limit where CC, and it's at CCP's discretion. I believe is that it can become an active gameplay mechanic, and then it becomes griefing, where
Yes.
you're just consistently bumping them for an extended period of time. I'm not sure exactly. I think you actively have to be either trying to scam them or trying to gank them. Otherwise, it becomes a griefing issue within the game, and CCP will step in.
Yeah, I saw Jason Kujian on here about a month ago, and I remember him talking about this. And as far as I know, he's absolutely right. Like, if someone is just literally griefing you for, yeah, there's no specific time, but let's say an hour, CCP is going to be on your side. They're going to tell that person to cut it off and stop harassing you. So, they take a practical approach with it. As far as putting in a mechanic to stop it, well, they've never, or not stop it, but to make it more active gameplay. They've never really successfully done that, or even really put forth an idea.
While we're back on the subject of high-sec hauling, it was brought to my attention that we completely forgot to talk about Wardex. So Wardex recently underwent a significant number of changes. We've got even more significant changes coming in May. Are these something which impacted high-sec hauling in the past? Has it changed for you in the future, or is it a non-issue?
It's a little bit of both. Definitely, Wardex in the past were a part of the reason why the corporations make you have an out of court hauler, because back before the war deck changes, there was no way we could haul with our in-corp characters, because as soon as we started hauling, we just get war decked, and then we'd be flying around in these defensive freighters, and we would just die all the time. So you have to have another character that's out of corp that is your hauler. Now that can be manipulated a little bit with the new war deck changes and stuff. However, having structures is also very advantageous. So I think the new system is really great. It makes for meaningful choices and puts a good balance for a lot of different types of gameplay, including hauling. We have not changed our policies. We talked about the idea, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it more in the future, about like offloading our structures and being immune to war decks, but that makes other problems. And so we're happy with what we have now, just continuing to dodge the old war decks the old style way of just keeping our haulers neutral.
Awesome. While we're on the train of thought of upcoming changes, there was a recent dev blog which was announced by CCP regarding the Triglavian ships. For those of you who don't recall or haven't heard yet, there are new Tech 2 Triglavian ships coming out, soon TM. We haven't had a release date for them, but they were gone over in relative detail, at least the design of them, at Amsterdam. So there's going to be a T2 frigate, an assault frigate, as well as a command destroyer and a heavy assault cruiser. And we have the names for them, a bit of art, but no stats or anything like that yet. And previously, particularly with the only other Triglavian T2 ship, the Zarmzad, it used Amar T2 materials to build. However, this new dev blog says that the Triglavian race, will be getting its own Tech 2 components and build materials, which will then be used in the construction of T2 Triglavian ships, including the Zarmzad. So it will be adjusted to, instead of using the Amar materials, they will be replaced with the Triglavian ones. And then, of course, there are also corresponding skills to go with that. So that's an interesting change, particularly if you build these ships or if you fly them. Maybe look out for an increase in price because now there's suddenly a bunch of skills that need to be trained and new materials that need to be harvested to produce these things. But also, this is like really new territory because we've never had non Four Empires T2 build materials ever.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really much else that other than I'm still super freaking hyped for more T2 Triglavian ships.
Yeah, I like that because it's in vein of the other Triglavian ships where that will probably keep the supply down, right, and keep it in that small gang sort of meta. It won't allow it to be blown up into like a big, super fleet meta.
Oh man, did you guys see? I believe it was Pandemic Legion took out. Remember, maybe it was 2 shows ago where I was describing how terrified I was when the initiative incorporated Kikimoras into their Bush fleet, their Stuka fleet, I believe they call it, for one op. And I thought this is the end. Rourke rolls are dead. Super ratting is dead. It's just you cannot defeat the Kikimora menace. But then there wasn't enough market to supply it. However,
No.
it seems PL has found a source, and they ran some very effective Kikimora fleets after the nerf to fighter application. So with AB shield fit Kikimoras, they could tank fighters and have a Bush fleet, and it is really freaking scary.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. And there seems to be some interesting kind of stuff going on with Kikimoras in terms of the like what's going on the actual markets as well. Do we want to talk about that by any chance, Artemis?
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, so by all means.
Well, they seem to be starting to go up in price, and whether that's kind of people speculating on how popular these new Command Destroyer Kikimoras, the Zarmans. Oh, hang on, I can't remember what the name is. Zarmazd. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But let me just bring up a graphic for that.
I know as of this, I think it was afternoonish, they were up like 70% in price. And I think it's just people stockpiling them. So, when the T2s come out, they can just upgrade their already built ships.
That is a good point. So the new T2 ships are going to be like building any other T2 ship. It will require the Tech 1 variant. So if you want to build the Assault Frigate, you need the Damavik. If you want to build the Command Destroyer, you need the Kikimora. And if you want to build the Heavy Assault Cruiser, you need the Vedmak. And furthermore, in addition to using the T1 hulls, you're also going to need more build materials. So that could theoretically increase demand for the build materials that you need to build the T1s in the first place, if I am not mistaken.
I think that's how it's going to be, yeah.
So definitely some interesting things to keep your eye on if you're interested in the market PvP area. It is definitely beyond my scope of interest, but it affects me in a significant way, so I should probably be more informed. All right, in other nullsec-related news, we have a deployment and a new addition to the Tranquility nullsec scene. Soon TM, maybe, possibly, perhaps. So Northern Coalition has deployed into Malpais, Malpais being the last, or one of the remaining regions for Brothers of Tangra, the rental alliance that has, for a long time, been a source of income for Northern Coalition. Previously PL as well, however, I believe the majority of ownership has transitioned over to NC Dot. And recently, Goonswarm Federation, following the lead of members of, I forget what they called themselves, the groups who were fighting in the Ethereum Reach, particularly Unspoken Alliance and Laserhawks, had begun killing renters pretty harshly, as well as poking at the Sov in the Spire. And some Imperium SIGs caught wind of this, came over and joined, and the Spire caught fire. And after it burned down, now, of course, the next target would appear to be Malpais, and so Northern Coalition is down there. This also puts them closer to the ongoing conflict between Legacy and Fraternity, which we'll talk a bit more about in a little bit. So it will be easier for them to third party on those, just as a nice side effect of the deployment. We also have, speaking of Fraternity, the other, or more rather, Chinese players migrating from the Serenity server onto the Tranquility server. It was released a translation of a ping to PIBC. I am not going to try and pronounce their actual name, but PIBC was what they were known as on the Serenity server. They effectively won the Serenity server, at least from an nullsec perspective. If you would like to know the story on that, there's a fantastic Rooks and Kings video on it. I'd highly recommend it. Or was it a Reddit post? In either case, Google it. You'll find it. It'll be in the show notes.
It was a Rooks and Kings video by the leader, Lord Barmon, or whatever his name is.
Malador.
Yeah.
That's it.
In any case, PIBC has announced that they are transitioning over to Tranquility. That is where their focus is going to be. An interesting thing that they mentioned is that they're resetting standings. So the majority of Fraternity, at least to my knowledge, are former Serenity players. However, they were not members of PIBC. They were members of the other groups and factions who lost the war, so to speak, and left Serenity to come to Tranquility to escape the blue donut, if you will, that had become nullsec there, because it was just not viable to fight PIBC. So now they have gone away with that. They say that they're getting rid of all standings, and it doesn't matter if they fought you or were friends with you on the on the Serenity server. On TQ, you're starting fresh. So I think that is super interesting.
There's a really funny kind of thing about their naming or the naming of their alliance that they're coming in to create. If you hadn't seen this, they're deciding that they're going to be calling their alliance the Army of Mango.
And I believe what Mangoes refers to is explained in the video by Lord Maldor. So definitely go and check that out if you want to understand that reference.
It is a great reference, by the way. It's top quality.
We'll definitely... Go ahead.
Let's hope that we can get our services translated to Chinese as they come to the new server, or to our server.
It's really gonna test Google Translate. I'm gonna tell you that right now. There's gonna be a lot of Google translating going on.
Just hire a translator, make a separate site. It'll be fine.
You know, and I, for one, welcome our new Chinese enemies. I think that's wonderful. Bring it on.
Enemies. The more the merrier. To conclusions there, Ron.
You meant to say overlords,
Z, baby. No, not. Come on now. Let's get real. Underlords, if anything, but more like enemies. Like, come on. We got room. Jump on in.
All right, the gauntlet has been thrown. PIBC, you've been served. You have notice. Legacy is coming for you, or at least they're not going to be friends, not yet, at least. Speaking of let's talk about Legacy. Let's transition into that story. So there has been ongoing fighting between Legacy and Fraternity. It was talked about a bit on the Sunday show just a few days ago. Do we have any more updates on that, Ron Silver, from the front lines?
Just that it's been fun as hell. A lot of fun for my group and me. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, you know, we've just been having, you know, lots of skirmishes, lots of fights. We have perimeter going on. You know, it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of people and they enjoy content. So, you know, losing ships or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as they're fighting and they're logging in, they're having fun, it's all.
Yeah, it's still like doing its simmer thing. Right, it hasn't quite boiled over yet. We've been fighting along the border, you know, poking at each other's sov, poking at some structures, but you know, that always ends in some sort of fight. So both sides, I think, are pretty satisfied with logging in every day, go poke a structure, go fight maybe once or twice in an hour, and then go home and be like high-fiving each other. It's been pretty even fighting. Um, sometimes the numbers get flip-flop, but at least the fights that I've been on, it's been like 100 on 100, sometimes 200 on 200, and that kind of stuff is great for the players. It's the best kind of fighting, in my opinion, is that 200 on 200, like hacks going at each other type of fighting, and maybe some support wings and stuff. I love that stuff, and it's been chock full of that.
Some good mid-level kind of size fights.
Yeah, and I think both sides have been pretty happy to keep it there. I mean, you have this like mutually assured destruction kind of standoff going on though. Like there's supers there on both sides, and they're like kind of itching to get in, but at the same time, it's been kept at a level where people are just having fun with it. It's been really good. Having Elo down there helps too, because he'll just throw stuff at you.
Yeah, he's always game for a fight.
Yeah, and he'll do it even outnumbered. He'll just take the shot and wind up in a fight, and it's been good.
All right. Well, we'll round the show out with another shout out to the upcoming Eve retreat. It is happening in Missouri. As I understand it, it is near St. Louis. So if you're down in southeastern U.S. area, definitely check out Eve Retreat. It is advertised on the TIS website. It's put together by Keskora, who is majorly responsible for the Talking Station website being as beautiful and functional as it is. So shout out to her for putting in all of that hard work, and also being a fantastic member of Wormhole Space, or not a real wormholer because she lives in a C4. Take your pick. But definitely check out the Eve Retreat if you live in that area of the U.S. I believe it is next weekend.
25th, yes, I think.
Fantastic. And maybe you can have the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational 2 on a live stream while you're there hanging out, having a beer with your Eve friends.
Beautiful.
All right. Any final thoughts that we have in this episode? Anything you guys want to cover that we haven't mentioned yet?
Ooh. Nothing comes to mind at the
I'm all
moment,
good.
but
Well, fantastic. I'd say we accomplished our mission then. Let's go ahead and go through some shout-outs. Once again, I did not warn our guests that they have to have shout-outs prepared. However, I think Flint has already had a person request a shout-out. Or was that Cassie? Which one of you?
That was me.
Do you want to indulge this individual, or would you rather snub them and shout out somebody else?
Well, I had a couple shout outs in mind. You were just talking about Eve Meats. If you are from Texas, like I am, I don't know if my accent gave it away or not. Down in the Houston area, there's a Discord server called Eve Texas Meetups. They have meetups once a month, sometimes every 2 months. But if you're an Eve player and you're around the Houston area, search for that Discord, Eve Texas Meetups. It's always a good time. Texas has these gigantic fantasy Mexican restaurants that will host 500 people, and that's where we always go and we have a good time. For shout outs in game, I just want to thank all my beautiful pushers, all those haulers out there working for PushX. Y'all been doing such a good job. The queue's been looking so good. Y'all been really making customers happy. All my directors that help me with everything, helping me find new members, helping me come up with new policies. Y'all just make my life so much better. Thank y'all. And Flint, in particular, who's joining me on this podcast, helping me set this up and getting the word out there about PushX. Thank you very much. And then I want to thank one of my old buddies who, if probably I didn't find him, I probably wouldn't have stuck around in Eve. Mr. Chuck Norris. He's a good old boy, a good old friend of mine. Great FC, master PvPer. He used to he ran the corp mostly sober, and I think now he's doing a corp called Right Click Jump To. He's a great guy.
He's a dinosaur now.
I think that's right. Yeah. He's been one of my oldest friends in Eve. Great guy. Shout out to you. Love you, boy. And I just want to thank y'all for having us on. It's really nice to meet y'all. I watch Talking Stations, and so it was really an honor to be on here. So thank you.
We're glad that you were able to join us. You had some fantastic insights to a topic that we don't hear that much about. How about you, Flint? You got any shout outs for us?
I'll say a shout out to the Eve Los Angeles group of people. You're all great guys and girls. I've seen Matterall there a couple times, Carnero's there a couple times now, and it's great fun hanging out with everyone, having beers. And if you guys are interested, just search us on Eve Reddit. There's a couple posts there how you can access our Discord. And then I just want to make one last shout out to Wally Mart's, the best poster on Reddit.
Alrighty. McLeod, do you got any shout outs for us?
Not really at the moment, but I wanted to maybe. I was literally writing you on the back channel about this, but we could potentially end on the invitational video and essentially basically say that, watch out for the invitational because it's coming the 27th and 28th, I think you said, right?
Indeed. So the video will likely still have the old date, but just
Yes.
remember it's on the 27th and the 28th. We'll end the show with that. But first, I want to get some shout outs from Ron USMC.
My shout out is for McLeod for stepping in at the last minute and making another great seamless show. So good job.
My unshout out
Yeah.
is to Ron USMC for stealing my shout out.
It's what I do.
Great job,
I mean,
guys.
it's part of just my DNA. It's how I roll.
All right, Silver.
My shout out is to anybody going to Eve North. FedUp is going to be rolling hard. We're going to have some swag and stuff, so come see me and say hi.
All right. Well, my new shout out is to Matterall for putting in the legwork and putting together the advertising menu, so to speak, for Talking in Nations. So if you would like to have your in-game group or social organization, what have you, advertised on Talking in Stations, be it our website or in our shows, you can contact Matterall for pricing on that. Shout out to him for putting in the legwork and also being the contact point for that and dealing with all of you wonderful Eve players. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of Talking in Stations, the season 1 episode number 4. And let's end with this fantastic video for the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational 2, April 27th to the 28th.